I watched the skills of the obstetricians go down. At the same time, I watched the fear level in women go to a place that I never imagined it could get to, where people would actually want surgery and ask for it and be so terrified of their own bodies that they would injure them in order to give birth. So that's a big change, and it's a cultural change. It's a kind of cultural madness that, you know, the whole culture is participating in, and people who are sane in other ways become so disconnected from their own bodies and from the earth and from nature that they think that the inventions of man are superior to nature. Well, when that happens, you're heading for the cliff. And I want to go, stop, come back. I am a storyteller, and that's a lot of my work, the way I help women. And I'm a joke teller because I like women to laugh, because that's how you get the natural painkillers to course through your body, and then birth can be quite wonderful and, yes, orgasmic. They're the parents, starting with the women, but the dads too. The children who are born at home are change agents. The children who witness the birth of their siblings, they're change agents, because they're going to tell the other kids how it works. That's how we get sex education again. They're the nurses who care to care and who are curious, the open-minded caregivers who are, once they hear that birth doesn't have to be torture, are curious enough to want to learn. They're the artists, the people who've had home births, the people who've had birth center births, the people who know that the body isn't something to fear. And we're all going to have to work on it, because it's going to have to actually, I'm sure, get into the mass media. It's going to take that, because the other thing is coming at us through the mass media. I've watched how people didn't used to talk about birth, but then when it started to enter into culture and entertainment, of course, drama. We want scary stuff. We're kind of addicted to adrenaline, and I'd like to see us become more addicted to oxytocin, because that's a lot better for creating connections between people and making ecstatic births, which helps us make the glue that binds people together, makes people treat each other right. So all of us, I guess, is the answer to that. When a baby is born peacefully, that spreads. We can't even count how far those ripples go. I mean, the thing about the butterfly over on the other side of the globe causing, a hurricane someplace else. When those peaceful vibes go out from a birth, that is wonderful and fulfilling, and you're creating love. It's a real energy, and it puts more peace in the world. I know it does. When you walk on the onto the 1,750 acres that is the farm, there's a different feeling there, because we've had so much wonderful love created there, and it's like I say, it improves, and it makes us smarter, it makes us more compassionate, and makes us realize our connection to each other and to all the species, to the planet. I know we can. I know we can change it, and I think that films, photos, a photo is very powerful. A woman who's in ecstasy because of birth. I know that midwives, before we had the camera, couldn't communicate to doctors. Midwives have been trying to communicate this stuff for 300 years. And they did well with words, but it couldn't get through. You have to see it to believe it, because birth really does look like a miracle. How could something this big, tight, let something that big out? Well, that happens every day, if it's allowed to. But if we're there cutting and pulling and putting people in ridiculous positions and doing things that you would never dare to do to any other mammal. And then we expect women to be able to give birth in the conditions that are you know, mandated, really. And women are just bludgeoned with, you want your selfish business, you want your selfish experience at the expense of your baby. No, no. The mother and the baby are really still, you know, one organism. They're so intimately linked that if you are being bad to the mother, you are actually being bad to the baby too, whether you think you are or not. And being kind to the mother, which is something that I intuited that first birth that I had, and I knew that if they'd treat, you know, that was my negative example. So I thought, if I do the opposite of how I was treated, you know, including when she's hungry, feed her. When she's thirsty, let her drink. Neither of these things was I allowed to do. And I just thought, I knew, it worked way better than I even thought, though, because it wasn't until I put it all in a computer and realized 20 years after I'd begun what an achievement it was, that this several hundred people that was almost, we were almost all in childbearing age, and, you know, a group experiment in life and death. That's really what it was. I think it was the ultimate survival puzzle. To talk to a woman and say, well, think on your ancestors. How did you get here? Because women don't do that. We don't get stories, most of us, unless, you know, mom was born at, you know, home or something like that. We might have some people with a family line like that, but most of us are cut off from the stories of our ancestors, and so we don't bother to think about it. But how did you get here? We've only had hospitals in this country for 100 years, so how did, you know, and people go, well, the graveyards are full. Well, they're not that full. They're not that full. And I, you know, for instance, I look in the, you know, the family photo book and look at my grandmother's siblings. There were 14 of them, and they all made it. And this was pretty typical of families around them. I mean, we didn't have stories of, you know, great numbers of deaths in the time before there was hospitals. My great-grandmother was a midwife, and she would go out and stay with family and stay with them for 2 weeks, because it wasn't just getting the baby out, but it was like getting that family to the right start in life. And that meant, you know, you don't want her up on her feet tending to the whole house with the 8 kids or whatever when she's just given birth. You want her to have that one be just as special as the first one was. And so that's what women used to do for each other. We have to recover that. We also have to know that it's a community thing when a baby's born. And you don't need to have everybody come in and see the baby immediately, because mom, dad, and the new baby need some peace. So we have to learn manners again. You know, right now we don't have very good manners. And we also have to learn that these things are for the babies. And men can enjoy them too, but dads shouldn't be competing with the baby, because this is the baby's means of sustenance. And so, you know, I think that if we could get so that we could get over this crazy American idea that breastfeeding is something sexual and something that shouldn't be seen and something that's destructive to let little children see, I think we need to see it. We'll be a kinder, wiser people if we can get over that particular neurosis. Every woman of the farm breastfed, everyone. Why? Because I didn't know there was such a thing as breastfeeding problems. Even the ones who were premature babies in the hospital where they wouldn't let the mother and baby to be together for a full month, but put them back together, and as long as mom's got milk, which we knew how to do that, you have to remove the milk in order to get more. How are you going to do that? Well, you got babies around and you got a dad with a mouse. I mean, come on. This was before we had breast pumps. My hope for the future of birth is that we will recognize how society, all over the world, we need midwives. We need to have midwives be the principal attendants of most of the births. We need to keep having obstetricians, doctors, but there are going to be fewer of them attending to birth, because you don't need so many if you really have your midwifery well developed and have true respect for it. When we do this, we will have higher status for all women, including those women who choose not to be moms. So we need that. So the approximate ratio that I would like to see would be something more like they have now in the Netherlands, where maybe 75 to 80% of births you'd go first to the midwife, and she'll know if you need a doctor, and she won't hesitate to refer you on to the doctor if you have some condition that's necessary. Midwife would be able to attend the mom in the place of her choice. A good percentage of people would choose home birth, and they would, because if it was available, that's what will happen. And then you'll have some others that might enjoy a birth center, and you'll have some others that'll feel better in a hospital, and some where a hospital will be necessary. So you should have, and the midwife should be able to follow you wherever that is. You would have places where moms could bring their baby to many jobs. Babies would be integrated into the life of the community, as we did in our community. High school teacher, nurse a baby, wonderful. Good for class discipline, they'll be very quiet. And we'll quit trying to make money off of women's reproductive lives. That would be very nice. And breastfeeding would be seen everywhere, almost everywhere, and we have a better world.